Have you ever noticed how some people lose hair on the top of their heads, but not on the sides? It's a curious phenomenon that has puzzled many for generations. It's a common sight, often starting with a receding hairline that gradually expands over time. This slow but steady progression can be distressing for those experiencing it. This pattern of hair loss, known as male pattern baldness, affects millions of men worldwide. It's a universal issue that transcends age, ethnicity, and lifestyle. But have you ever wondered why hair loss seems to favor the top of the head? Why does the hair on the sides and back often remain intact? The answer lies in a complex interplay of hormones, genetics, and the fascinating biology of hair follicles. These factors work together in ways that scientists are still trying to fully understand. Hair follicles are tiny structures in our skin that produce hair. They are incredibly intricate and play a crucial role in our appearance. They're like miniature factories, constantly churning out strands of hair throughout our lives. Each follicle goes through cycles of growth, rest, and shedding. However, not all hair follicles are created equal. Some are more susceptible to the effects of hormones and genetics, leading to the uneven pattern of hair loss we often see. Hair follicles on different parts of our body have different sensitivities to hormones, particularly a hormone called dihydrotestosterone or DHT. DHT is a derivative of testosterone, the primary male sex hormone. While testosterone is crucial for the development of male characteristics, DHT has a rather unfortunate side effect. It can shrink hair follicles. Hair follicles on the top of the head are particularly sensitive to DHT. When DHT levels increase, these follicles begin to miniaturize, producing thinner and shorter hairs with each growth cycle. Eventually, the follicles may shrink to the point where they can no longer produce visible hair, leading to baldness. DHT's role in hair loss is well documented. This hormone, dihydrotestosterone, is a derivative of testosterone and plays a crucial role in the development of male characteristics. However, its impact on hair follicles is less desirable. While all men produce DHT, those genetically predisposed to male pattern baldness have hair follicles that are more sensitive to its effects. This genetic predisposition means that some men will experience hair loss earlier and more severely than others. This sensitivity is determined by the presence of specific receptors on the surface of hair follicles. These receptors bind to DHT, triggering a process that can shrink hair follicles and shorten the hair growth cycle. Think of these receptors as docking stations for DHT. When DHT binds to these receptors, it can lead to the miniaturization of hair follicles, making them less capable of producing healthy hair. The more docking stations a follicle has, the more sensitive it is to DHT. This increased sensitivity can accelerate the hair thinning process, leading to noticeable hair loss over time. The sensitivity of hair follicles to DHT varies depending on their location. Follicles on the top of the head are particularly vulnerable, while those on the sides and back are more resistant. Follicles on the top of the head have a higher density of DHT receptors compared to follicles on the sides and back of the head. This difference in receptor density is why hair loss typically starts at the crown and temples. This explains why hair loss typically occurs in a characteristic pattern, sparing the sides and back. Understanding the role of DHT and its receptors is key to developing effective treatments for male pattern baldness. The sensitivity of hair follicles to DHT, or dihydrotestosterone, is largely determined by genetics. This hormone plays a crucial role in the development of male pattern baldness. If your father or grandfather experienced male pattern baldness, chances are you inherited genes that make your hair follicles more susceptible to DHT. This genetic predisposition can be passed down through generations, affecting both men and women. However, it's important to note that hair loss is not always inherited from the father's side. Your mother's genetic contribution is equally significant in determining your hair's fate. Genes from both parents contribute to an individual's risk of developing male pattern baldness. This means that even if your father has a full head of hair, you could still be at risk if your mother's side has a history of hair loss. Think of it like this. Your genes provide the blueprint for your hair follicles, determining their sensitivity to DHT. This blueprint dictates how your hair follicles will respond to hormonal changes over time. If you inherit genes that make your follicles highly sensitive, you're more likely to experience hair loss at an earlier age and to a greater extent. Understanding your family's hair loss patterns can help you anticipate and manage potential hair loss more effectively. Section 5. The enigma of the sides, why they stand strong. While the top of the head bears the brunt of DHT's effects, the hair follicles on the sides and back of the head remain relatively unscathed. This is because these follicles are genetically programmed to be less sensitive to DHT. They have fewer DHT receptors, making them less responsive to the hormone's follicle-shrinking effects. The exact reasons for this difference in sensitivity are still being investigated. However, it's thought that hair follicles on the sides and back of the head may have different biological pathways that make them less susceptible to DHT. Section 6. Beyond hormones and genes. Other factors at play. While hormones and genetics play a major role in male pattern baldness, other factors can also contribute to hair loss. These include age. Hair follicles naturally become less active with age, producing thinner and shorter hairs. Stress. Prolonged stress can disrupt the hair growth cycle, leading to increased shedding. Nutrition deficiencies in certain nutrients such as iron and zinc can affect hair growth. Medical conditions. Certain medical conditions such as thyroid disorders and autoimmune diseases can cause hair loss. It's important to rule out any underlying medical conditions before attributing hair loss solely to male pattern baldness. Section 7. The future of hair research and hope. Researchers are constantly exploring new ways to prevent and treat hair loss. Current treatments include medications that block DHT production or stimulate hair growth. However, these treatments have limitations and may not work for everyone. Emerging research is focusing on developing more targeted therapies that address the underlying causes of hair loss, such as gene editing and stem cell therapy. While these treatments are still in the experimental stage, they offer hope for a future where hair loss may no longer be an inevitability. Section 8. Embracing the change. Baldness in perspective. While hair loss can be a source of insecurity for some men, it's essential to remember that it's a natural biological process. Embracing one's changing appearance can be liberating and empowering. Many men, including celebrities and public figures, have confidently rocked their bald heads, challenging societal norms and redefining beauty standards. Ultimately, hair loss is just one aspect of a person's appearance. True confidence comes from within, from embracing who you are, regardless of the number of hairs on your head.